Welcome to the Doomsday Clock. I'm your host, My Violent Heart. In my personal opinion, it is important for all white people to have a gun and know how to hunt. Guns allow you to protect yourself and your family from all types of threats, and hunting allows you to get food for your family. To ensure that all of my listeners have adequate knowledge of these subjects, I've created this episode. And since I have no idea how much knowledge or experience you have, I'll have to assume that you're a total rookie. So I'm giving you a crash course. Let's begin. Number 1. The categories of guns. There are 6 categories of guns. Every gun ever made fits into one of these categories. There's handguns, rifles, shotguns, assault rifles, submachine guns, and heavy machine guns. Each of them has a different purpose. Rifles are designed for high accuracy at great distance. They allow you to stay in one spot and shoot any targets within that distance. Their high accuracy helps ensure that you only hit the target you're aiming for. Shotguns are designed for maximum potential. They support 2 types of ammo, allowing either high damage on one target or several targets. Handguns are designed for mobility. Their small size and low weight are ideal for moving around. They're great for shooting at close range. Submachine guns are designed for close quarters combat. Their high rate of fire allow you to quickly go from one target to the next, thus allowing you to eliminate multiple threats very quickly. Assault rifles are designed for combat at medium and high range. Their high rate of fire and high accuracy at high range make them ideal for soldiers. That's why the majority of armies issue assault rifles to their infantry. Heavy machine guns are designed for crowd control. They have the highest rate of fire of any gun. This allows one person to quickly eliminate dozens of targets. This makes them perfect for defending your base or mobile troops. There's other differences, but to fully understand, I must cover the other topics. Number 2, ammunition. This is where the most people are confused. It all starts with not understanding the components and their proper names. Let's clear that up. Modern gun ammo is called the cartridge. Cartridge contains all of the following items: a casing, a primer, gunpowder, and a projectile. Each item serves a different purpose. The casing acts as a storage device for the other items. This makes it very easy to quickly load your gun. Shotguns use plastic casings. Every other gun uses a metal casing. The casing is a tube attached to a circular metal plate. The metal plate has a small hole in the center. That's where the primer fits. The rest of the components are stored in the tube. The primer is a small, round explosive. When you squeeze the trigger of your gun, it punctures the primer. That causes a small explosion, which sets off the gunpowder. Gunpowder is a mix of coal, sulfur, and potassium. It requires a spark to explode. When it explodes, it launches the projectile. The projectile is the object that shoots from your gun. A bullet is a type of projectile. It is not the combined components you load into your gun. There's 3 types of projectiles. Each is different. Handguns and submachine guns use handgun cartridges. This type uses a projectile that's a small, round ball. Shotguns can also use this type of ammo. That ammo is called a slug. Rifles, assault rifles, and heavy machine guns use rifle cartridges. This type uses a projectile that's a cylinder with a cone-shaped tip. This type of projectile gives high accuracy at long range. The third type is called a shotgun shell. It's only for shotguns. This type of cartridge uses multiple projectiles instead of just one. These are called pellets. The size of the pellets depend on the number of pellets inside. The shotgun shell requires an extra component called a wad. The wad is a piece of plastic that's inserted between the gunpowder and the pellets. It prevents the gunpowder from coating the pellets and destroying them when the gun is fired. When fired, the pellets scatter out, hitting different spots. You can use them to shoot a group of targets, or you can focus all of that destruction on just one foe. If you did, you'd blast them to bits. A shotgun loaded with shells is devastating at close range, about 40 yards. If you shot a wall, you'll see dozens of holes instead of just one. This scatter effect is called a spread. If you want a wider spread, pick the shell with a high number of small pellets. If you want a tighter spread with more firepower, pick the shell with the low number of large pellets. If you want a medium spread and firepower, pick the shell with the medium number of medium-sized pellets. Shotguns use the term gauge to determine the diameter of the barrel. Gauge is determined from a solid sphere of lead that will fit the bore of the barrel. The number represents the fraction of 1 pound. The most common gauges are 10, 12, and 20. A 10 gauge supports a lead sphere 1/10 of a pound. A 12 gauge supports a lead sphere 1/12 of a pound. A 20 gauge supports a lead sphere 1/20th of a pound. The size of a barrel determines the size of the slug, the size of the pellets, and the number of pellets it supports. This makes the 10 gauge the most powerful, the 12 gauge the second most powerful, and the 20 gauge is the weakest. 10 gauge is the best for hunting big game, since it supports the largest slugs, pellets, and the highest number of pellets. The 20 gauge is the best for hunting small game, since it don't require big slugs or pellets. 12 gauge is the most popular for shotguns. It can support large slugs and a variety of shells for the spread and power you want. It can be used for hunting game of any size. It's the most versatile of the three. Handguns, rifles, submachine guns, and heavy machine guns all use the word caliber to determine the circumference of their barrel, and thus the size of the bullet they use. Now for handgun and submachine gun ammo. These numbers range from 22 to 50. A 25 caliber is a quarter of an inch, while a 50 caliber is half of an inch. A 22 caliber is the weakest, while a 50 caliber handgun is the most powerful. A 50 caliber handgun can actually kill a buffalo at close range, about like 10-20 feet, and it takes like 5 or 6 shots. Anything after a 38 caliber would be ideal for self-defense. Now to talk about rifles and heavy machine guns. Rifle cartridges can either have 2-digit numbers or 3-digit numbers. It's confusing. You'll hear such numbers as 22, 223, 308, 30-06, and 50 caliber. Just remember the size of the number means the size and power of the gun. Number 3, hollow points and magnums. You've probably heard of the word hollow points. It's a special type of bullet that's hollow in the center and the tip. Hollow points flatten on impact. You've probably also heard of the word magnum. This refers to both the gun and the ammunition. It's a more powerful version of both. I've already said that a 50 caliber handgun can kill a buffalo. That's the normal version. A 50 caliber Magnum handgun can kill an elephant. We'll start with Magnum ammo. The casing is slightly longer and filled with more gunpowder. Usually that gunpowder has extra ingredients to give it more power. The bullet itself is made from stronger metals to give it more punch. Since the cartridges create a more powerful explosion, the gun itself must be able to withstand that explosion. The Magnum gun is slightly thicker, heavier, and made from stronger metals than the normal version of that caliber. A Magnum gun can fire either Magnum ammo or normal ammo. A normal gun cannot fire Magnum ammo. If you try, the gun will explode and you will get seriously injured. Magnum cartridges can also have hollow points. This gives you more firepower that flattens on impact. Number 4, gun mechanics. Now to cover the mechanics of the gun. This will help you understand the inner workings of each type of gun. To save time, I'll only cover the most important information. I'll start with the general description of a gun. Every gun has a grip, a body, a trigger, a hammer, a barrel, and a chamber. The grip is the part you hold your hands onto. Handguns and most submachine guns only have one grip. The other types of guns usually have 2 grips. The body is a piece of solid material used to hold all of the other pieces. With handguns, submachine guns, and heavy machine guns, the body is called a frame. With shotguns, rifles, and assault rifles, the body is called a stock. The trigger is a curved piece of metal you squeeze to fire the gun. It's physically connected to the hammer. The hammer is a small piece of metal placed behind the chamber. When the trigger is squeezed, the hammer launches forward, puncturing the primer. Chamber is a metal tube where the cartridge is loaded. Usually the chamber is exposed. The barrel is where the projectile enters as it shoots from the gun. Now then, most guns are double action, but some handguns are still single action. With single action, the hammer is exposed and requires manually cocking it into position every time you want to fire a shot. With double action, the gun itself cocks the hammer, allowing you to quickly fire another shot. The word action also refers to the mechanics of loading the chamber. The most basic action is the break action. This is most common with shotguns. On top of the trigger there's a lever. Move that and the barrel breaks open. A break action can have one barrel called a single shot or 2 barrels called a double barrel. A side-by-side is a double barrel with both barrels across from each other. An over and under has one barrel on top of the other. The next action is a pump action, which is also more common with shotguns. With the pump action, there's a wooden piece by the barrel. When you pump that, it discharges the cartridge inside the chamber and reloads the chamber. The next action is a lever action. There have been shotguns made with this action, but it's more common for rifles. A lever action has a lever by the trigger. Moving that back and forth discharges and reloads the chamber. The last action is a bolt action. These have an L-shaped bolt placed by the chamber. Move that up and backwards and it discharges the chamber. Then move it forwards and down to reload the chamber. Now for handguns. There's revolvers and semi-automatic. A revolver has a cylinder with multiple chambers, usually 6. There's a button by the grip. Press that and the cylinder opens. When it's opened, you'll see a pin in front of the chambers. Point the barrel upwards and push the pin forward and the empty casings fall out. Then release the pin, reload the chambers, close the cylinder, and the gun's reloaded. A semi-automatic looks kind of like an L. Cartridges are loaded into a metal storage device called a clip. The handle of the gun has an opening for the clip, which is called a magazine. Once the magazine is loaded, you have to load the chamber. The slide discharges and reloads the chamber. The slide is that piece of metal that has the sights. When you pull the slide backwards, it readies a cartridge to enter the chamber. There's a small lever by the trigger. Press that and it closes the slide and inserts the cartridge into the chamber. Now you're free to shoot the gun until the clip is empty. When you need to exchange clips, press the button by your thumb. That will release the clip inside the magazine. Number 5. Miscellaneous terms. We'll start with semi-automatic and fully automatic. With semi-automatic, every time you squeeze the trigger, the gun will fire, discharge the spent cartridge, and reload the chamber. Whereas with fully automatic weapons, the gun will do all of that for as long as you keep the trigger squeezed. Now then, I'm sure you've heard of the words kick and recoil. They do not mean the same thing. Handguns have recoil. Shotguns and rifles have kick. Cartridges contain gunpowder, which is a small explosive. Every time you squeeze that trigger, the gunpowder will explode. This causes handguns to recoil up towards your head and causes rifles and shotguns to kick back at you. If you lose control of your gun, you could get yourself or someone else seriously or even fatally injured. The handgun can easily smack you in the forehead, causing serious brain trauma. The rifle or shotgun can easily kick you in your chest, breaking your collarbone. And there was the story a few months ago of this woman who's at a shooting range shooting a .50 caliber Magnum semi-automatic handgun. She fired one shot. She lost control of the gun. The gun recoiled back, pointing the barrel right at her forehead. She accidentally squeezed that trigger and blew off her own head. Do not make that mistake. Number 6. Size matters. Handguns should fit comfortably in your hand, not too big and not too small, or else it will be hard to get a good grip and shoot safely. Shotguns, rifles, and assault rifles should be the right length for your arms and upper body. When you aim the gun, you want the end to fit tightly on your chest without your elbow sticking too far out. This will give you a tighter grip on the gun and greater control. If you've never shot a gun before or just have little experience with them, then I strongly suggest starting out with something small and weak. The very last thing you want is to shoot a gun that's too powerful for you and you cannot control. Safety first. For shotguns, a 20 gauge is always a great starting point. For handguns and rifles, that would be a 22. They're weak guns that even a child can control. They're also a great choice for hunting small game like rabbits, squirrels, and raccoons. Number 7. Shooting tips. And now for some shooting tips. Accuracy is always more important than rapid fire. Sure, you can fire 100 bullets a second, but that won't matter if none of them hit your target. Besides, if you hit them in the right place, then you really only need one shot. Therefore, rapid fire is only useful when you're shooting multiple targets. Again, you must be accurate. Accuracy is all about two things: controlling the gun and having the sights properly adjusted. Controlling your gun is all about maintaining a firm grip. Hold your gun firmly with both hands. Rifles and shotguns have a separate grip for your free hand. With handguns, your free hand should be gripped firmly under your shooting hand. Squeeze your gun tightly with your arms, shoulders, and upper body. If you have a firm grip and your gun isn't too powerful for you, then you should be able to maintain high accuracy with each shot. Getting your gun sights adjusted is very simple. Get a cardboard target of a crosshair that has markings at each interval. Half inch, full inch, quarter of an inch, that type of thing. Aim at the very center of the crosshair and fire 3 shots. Look at the target and see where those shots hit. If the gun shoots straight, then all 3 shots should be very close together. within a quarter of an inch. Those hits are called a pattern. You want the pattern to be right on the center of the crosshairs. You do this incrementally. Fire 3 shots, make slight adjustments to your sight, then try again. Scopes have 2 dials, one on top, one on the side. The top dial moves your vertical sight. The side dial moves your horizontal sight. Each dial has multiple clicks. Each click will move the sight about a quarter of an inch in that direction. Using a target with a grid makes it very easy to adjust your scope. After a few tries, you'll hit the center. When that happens, your scope is sighted in. Number 8, target practice. Okay, so you got a gun and you're ready for some target practice. You can now use targets that look like animals. They make targets with pictures of a wide variety of creatures for you to shoot at. These include animals, zombies, Osama bin Laden, and many others. These allow you to practice shooting at vital spots. Most training for self-defense try to hit their target's kneecaps. Their goal is to remove their attacker's ability to walk and run, thus removing the threat. This is not a good idea. Kneecaps are very small and hard to hit. You're better off aiming for different spots. Besides, you're fighting for your life, so you should be using lethal force. Now you could aim for the head, but that's also a small hard spot to hit. Your best bet is the chest. There's plenty of choice vital organs in the chest, and is a huge target. When you shoot the chest, you'll hit their pectoral muscles, their ribs, and their lung. Disable their lungs, and they'll be unable to breathe. They'll stagger around for a bit until they die. Number 9, basic hunting tips. The goal of hunting is to catch your prey completely off guard. To do this, you must prevent them from even knowing you are there. They must not be allowed to see you, smell you, or hear you. To avoid letting them hear you, make sure all of the gear you are carrying is properly restrained and will not move around, making too much noise. To make sure they don't smell you, avoid using laundry detergent, soap, and shampoo that has any type of scent. To make sure they don't see you, well, most people think I'll just wear some camouflage. Yes, camouflage is important, but it's not enough. When you're at your spot, no matter how good your camo is, your prey will see you if you move around too much. You must remain as still and motionless as possible. You must become a statue. When deer hunting, I prefer to sit on the ground against a tree. I lean back and remain as still as possible. I only move my eyes when I scan the area. I take slow and deliberate breaths. The barrel of my gun and my scope is wrapped in camo fabric. I might even have some shrubbery attached to my clothing. My face is completely covered with the camo mask at all times. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on several inches of cold, wet snow. The wind chill is about 40 miles per hour. It's always snowing or raining, and always in the negatives. I am freezing my white ass off, and this continues for at least 10 hours. Through training, I'm able to remain completely still. I've had dozens of deer walk up right next to me. They didn't even know I was there. I was able to catch them completely off guard. Number 10, miscellaneous items. There's many great items that you can use to trick your prey into exposing themselves. These include calls, scents, and decoys. It's best to use them together. Calls are plastic tubes that when you blow into them, they sound like a duck or a goose. This tricks other ducks into thinking one of his buddies is inviting him over for a nice cold beverage. If a duck falls for it, he'll come towards you, giving you a better shot. Deer scents. Deer scents contain the urine of a female deer taken when she was in heat. Pour it in front of your hunting spot. If a buck smells it, he'll think there's a doe in the area and come running. Decoys. Decoys are full-size plastic replicas of an animal. Place one in front of your spot and you might trick your prey into thinking it's one of his buddies. He might even come over to say hi. Each of these items are effective on their own, but they're best when used together. Setting a few duck decoys in front of you and using a duck call helps trick ducks into thinking there's actually ducks there calling him. If you place a deer decoy in front of your spot and pour the deer scent under it, it'll be more convincing to a buck that there's a doe in that area. Unfortunately, they don't make deer calls or duck scents. If they did, you could use sight, smell, and sound to trick your prey. And this concludes your crash course. Thank you for listening to the Doomsday Clock. I'd like to remind you what this is all about, the 14 words. At any and all cost. At any and all means. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. That's must. No excuses. No whining, no begging or pleading. No complaints about unfairness. Whatever the hell it takes, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. And memes alone will not do it. Nor will signs and rallies sway our racial enemies. Votes won't save our race. We must do it. We must save ourselves. This is a racial holy war, a war for our very survival. What could be more holy, more important, more sacred than fighting for the survival of our race?